Welcome to this episode of the Fully Charged Show podcast, and we're doing a bit of a podcast takeover today. I'm here with Ricky Roy.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Our California correspondent.
Yes, live at the Fully Charged Show.
And what are we sitting in?
This is a very special car. First time, I think, for you?
First time I've sat in it yet.
Rivian R1T. And this is imported, I think, from the US. You're on the wrong side of the wheel.
No, this is the wrong side of the wheel, yeah.
But it's quite a special thing.
Yeah.
This is more common in California, maybe not in the entire US, but this is one of those cars, every time I see it drive by, you just got to stop and look at it. It's such a thing.
I have to say, it is beautiful. And I'm not a big fan of pickup trucks, but this thing is wild.
This is super American. It's such an American thing, and it's electric, so we should love it doubly.
Even better. So we're here today at the Fully Charged Show live in Farnborough. It's second day. The sun is out.
Sun is out.
Finally. It was a bit miserable yesterday.
It was dreary. It was a little overcast.
Our lovely British weather for you there.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a lot of cars to see here today. What's been some of your standout kind of attractions?
So the ID Buzz is a car we don't have yet.
Okay.
And it's coming. There's a long wheelbase American version, I think. It's maybe North American. And it's coming, but we don't have them. We don't see them. I saw Jack's episode.
Yeah.
Especially that color scheme in Jack's episode. And there's one out here with that look. It's such a pretty thing. And I think that will be one of the few vans in the U.S. that'll sell well. So that's been cool. Right in front of us, this is this Italian
thing
startup.
Is beautiful. It's
Era,
such a good-looking car.
I think it is. Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely stunning thing. So there's all kinds of cool new things, and also just all the offerings that you have in Europe that we don't have in the U.S. There's so much more to choose from.
Definitely. Now, there's a few cars here from China, and that's definitely one of the topics I want to talk about today is not US versus China, but US and China. So, you've just sat in a BYD.
Yes.
What were your impressions of that?
It's a car. It's remarkably great. It's actually really nice, and they've picked good size models, I think. That compact crossover segment is massive. It's one of the biggest in the US, and I think it'll sell well. But there's challenges. We can get to that, I think.
I think so.
It's a complicated story. There's more to it. There's layers, but
definitely. And so, this is my first time sitting in a Rivian. It's the first time sitting in Ford F-150 Lightning, and it's just amazing to see the wealth and difference of cars that are here today. So let's touch on that US-China thing.
Before we start, can I just say we were just over at the BYD booth. And the BYD representatives were telling us that they learn about their cars from Elliot and his videos. So I think you've become the de facto
BYD
center of knowledge of all things automotive in China. Which is amazing.
Good. That's really good. Yeah. So I just don't understand because, it's your first time sitting in a BYD.
Yes.
And you were telling me earlier that Americans don't really have much idea about what's coming from China. Why is that? So
I kind of thought in Europe there was more, maybe just my bias from watching your videos. But in the US, if you did a poll of 1,000 Americans and asked them name one Chinese automaker, they wouldn't be able to. There's no press, there's no knowledge, there's no interest. It's just a kind of a blissful ignorance of it all. And I think that is troubling, especially when these cars start shipping, it'll catch people off guard. And I don't think the American market understands how far along some of these cars are. Those are just fantastic cars. Yeah. They're ready to ship, and BYD is a big company. They're going to succeed in doing this. When they'll actually ship to the US, we'll find out. There's been some
challenges,
things and changes with the last couple of presidents, but it's just a matter of when. I don't know when that might be, but
What I really struggle with is why GM have just cancelled the Bolt. I mean, what are they doing? Is the US just going to become 100% trucks? Because it feels that way.
So I think GM has good intentions, but the execution, and I think that'll be a theme throughout, is I think we've passed the stage of cool prototypes and 3D renders and EVs are cool. I think we've passed that. I think everyone understands. And we've entered this age of execution. Like, can you do this? Rivian, the car we're sitting in, brilliantly good car. But
definitely.
There's a execution that lays ahead that they have to prove and kind of get through. With GM, it's kind of the same problem. The Bolt was destined to have this fate because it doesn't have their new platform. The Bolt was a relic of a time when they just built this one-off EV. It uses LG Chem batteries, not their new Ultium stuff. So it was just a question of when. The foolish mistake I think GM made was refreshing it. They made a whole new model with the Bolt EUV and the bigger one. And why? If you knew that it wasn't on your new platform, it was destined to be a relic, why even bother? Just go right into Ultium, build the cars that matter. By that rationale, why build the Hummer next? This massive 200, it has a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack. How big is the pack in the Dolphin or one of these cars? That
Probably around 60 kilowatts.
Yeah, you could build 3 of those for the amount of battery cells you would need. It's just an insane type of, I do think they have the right intentions. Execution feels a little lacking.
And what I'm also really surprised about, and you've seen the video of like the Wuling Mini EV Cabrio.
What a thing.
Amazing, right? Do you see yourself driving that in California?
I don't know if that would be road legal in California. Have you seen the kinds of cars people drive in the US? It's an arms race in the US, right? Where I live, you'll see people with Ford F350s.
F350?
Lifted, driving by themselves, not even a bag of groceries.
Oh no.
How does that end? If you're driving the Wuling Mini and you come across one of those,
you probably put one in the back.
You could. Absolutely.
That's incredible. But that Wuling is a GM product.
Is it?
It's a GM Wuling and SAIC product. So obviously their Chinese arm is not talking to their US arm.
Right.
But they're producing cars that people are buying. It's one of the best selling cars in China, beating Tesla.
Really?
So I just don't understand their strategy, really.
So could there be a collaboration for a US car with the GM badge on it?
Sure, why not?
That actually might be the best way to enter the market, right?
I think
Especially if you have the same badge as what Americans are used to.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they had a partnership.
Yeah, so, and we were saying earlier that Buick, not a particularly popular car in the US.
The opposite, yeah.
Whereas in China, it's massively popular. They've got wagons, they've got the GL8, it's a station wagon, and they've got they've got loads of cars, I can't remember. But they've got a really good market, but in the US, just a bit. So
I remember watching a GM announcement, and I was like, why are they catering to like the Chinese market? It didn't make any sense to me. And then I pulled up the numbers. Yeah, the Buick sells very little in the US. It's not a popular car. It has like this old man, it's like this old middle-aged salesman type of a vibe. But in China, they're brilliant. I mean, they're big and they're liked for whatever reason. It's an interesting, I can't quite figure that out. Why are they popular in China? I couldn't tell you.
I don't know why either. They've just been, historically, they've been there a long time and been very functional and useful. They are a bit of an old man car in China as well. You're either a big like coal mining boss who needs to be ferried about to his next coal mine, and you get at the back of a GL8. That's why they're popular. But like young people aren't really buying them.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
No. And so what do you think it will take for Chinese automakers to get over to America?
So first of all, it might be a couple of years because I think the Inflation Reduction Act has kind of put all plans on pause because now you're playing with a $7,500 handicap.
Yeah.
Even if they make a brilliant car and the price is really good, is it $7,500 better than something that the Americans can make or somebody who has a plant? So the first part would be, what if BYD built a factory in the US, right? I mean, VinFast, the Vietnamese car company, is doing that.
Yeah.
They're building a factory, I believe, in South Carolina. So maybe that's the answer. And then you have your North American supply chain, you qualify for the credit. The one cool thing about the IRA, it doesn't really specify like you have to be American. It's just you have to have a North American supply chain, free trade agreements, that sort of thing. So there's nothing keeping them from doing that, and maybe that's the way to do it.
And then Ford were in talks with CATL, the battery maker, to build a factory as well.
Yeah.
So they're obviously planning to do it, and I think it will be probably just a few years until you get your first Chinese cars there. And so what do you think is going to be the reception of the American consumer to driving a Chinese car? This is a bit of a spicy topic.
It's quite spicy. The difference would be the general perception versus in my opinion, it'll be conservative news outlets that really paint this picture. And if you look at like Trump, I think was the first to really put that in the American mind, the psyche, this idea of Chinese brands. So there's Chinese brands that are beloved. We were talking yesterday about DJI.
Yeah.
DJI is just killing it. We have DJI drones and camera gimbals, and they make the best products. It's not even close.
Yeah.
They have a massive presence. They have their HQ in Shenzhen, but if you ask the average American, they don't think it's a Chinese brand. So the actual perception and the news kind of propaganda of it all, if you will, is quite different. So it'll kind of depend upon where people get their news from, their political leanings, and all of that. That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
And there's maybe not a great answer of how to overcome that.
No, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy entry, I think, into the US. But we were saying, you think BYD, Build Your Dreams, is a very fitting name for a car to be sold in America, right?
BYD. They actually spelled it out on the back plate, which is interesting. Build your dreams. We were joking earlier about the Chinese. They make an effort to appeal, to have the right branding, marketing, and sometimes the English, the translation's just a hair off. But build your dreams. I think if you saw that rolling around the American streets, you probably wouldn't immediately know unless you knew what to look for. So I think name-wise, it's good. We also kind of mentioned, I think the playbook that everybody outside of the US should copy is Hyundai Kia. They were seen as a kind of a low-quality brand 20 years ago. I remember when I was a kid, oh, you got a Kia. Oh, is everything okay? Is work not going? Yeah. But now it's a really killer brand. Their designs, I mean, first of all, they just got all the bosses from Audi and all the big players, which is great. But then what they did was, over about 15 years, they completely changed the narrative. Pretty remarkable, actually. But they, for example, we mentioned 10-year warranty, 10-year unlimited warranty. When Honda and Toyota, the cars that people probably wanted to get, were 4 years. So if you see that and you think, I kind of like the idea of a 10-year warranty. I don't want to have any repairs. And they make good cars and they stand by it. And slowly over time, with great design, they just keep hitting it, good commercials, appeal. It's the perception is reality component, and in the U.S. that looms large. You have to bald eagles, cowboy boots. You just gotta sell to the.
You just gotta go all in, haven't you?
Yes.
So we think maybe they should rename Build Your Dreams to Build Your American Dreams. BYAD.
BYAD. It becomes a mouthful. It's hard to spell out.
Not enough space on the back.
I think Build Your Dreams will work. The other thing they could do is they could have another brand for the U.S. Right. Honda, Lexus.
Yeah, that's true. Like
Honda,
Genesis,
Acura, Genesis, right? Lexus. So what everyone's learned, and this is even premium German brands, Volkswagen couldn't sell the Phaeton for $80,000 because nobody wants an $80,000 Volkswagen. That's just not, it doesn't compute.
No.
So make it an Audi and it'll be fine, right? Make it a Lexus and now you have the LS for $100,000 and people buy them by the hundreds and thousands. So maybe they should make a specific American product, same underpinnings, a couple little things different, new brands and badges and commercials and the marketing push. So that would be my personal feedback would be offer something compelling, a massive warranty, double everybody else's, stand by your product. For electric cars, it should be easy. And two, maybe a custom nameplate for the US. Factory in the US, and I think you're in.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if any automaker wants to contact Ricky, I'm sure he can help your US strategy. One other automaker, which we should probably talk about, is Tesla. Because for me, I see them as both China and American-based. So they've obviously got the Gigafactory in Shanghai. You're an owner. What do you think the future holds for Tesla as the tensions rise between the US and China? Is Tesla going to fall out of favor? Are they innovating quickly enough in order to beat the Chinese market? What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years?
Excellent question. So first of all, Tesla's popular in China, right?
Very
American
popular.
brands have no problem going to China.
No.
So, globalization, ideally, hopefully, more choice, more options is a good thing, and the opposite is true. We'll see. I'm not sure. But I think Tesla's going to be just fine. If you look at their last investor relations day, their media day, when they talked about the new batteries, or the new motors, that have no rare earth metals, everybody was underwhelmed. As the engineer in me, I was incredibly impressed.
Yeah.
And the reason is they're at a different level now. They're not trying to garner attention. Like the Cybertruck was an attention-grabbing move. It's like, look what we could do. Stainless steel exoskeleton. This is, we're about to completely disrupt how motors are made, bring down cost. And everything about what Tesla's doing seems to be all around profit margin, cost. I think they make more per sales of an EV than anybody else.
They do, yes.
Ford, Rivian included, anybody included. And so if they can remove the need for neodymium and other rare earth metals like they're going to, which, by the way, they all come from China, and they could just build proper good magnets using iron with some interesting chemistries and things that they're working on. There's a company in Minnesota that's helping them with this. That's a huge win, because if their motors now cost 50% less, their packs are already probably some of the cheapest. The Chinese will definitely disrupt there. It'll be close. In a lot of ways, I almost feel like both the Chinese and Tesla are really hyper-focused on the business component. While others are still on the marketing side. Like they're still trying to, EVs are cool, you should check one out, get a Ford Lightning. They're still on that stage. And Tesla seems like they've completely passed that up. So I think Tesla's going to be just fine. Some of the other companies probably should be taking note, especially as the Chinese brands arrive. What do you think? What's your take?
Tesla's an interesting one. So my wife actually went to drive one a couple of weeks ago. She's like, everyone's driving one, and they are everywhere in Shanghai. And it's a really good value proposition. It's £22,000 for a new Tesla, and you get it in 2 to 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that for the 3?
Yeah, this is the Model 3.
Is there a tax credit or something? Is there some component to that?
There's a very little. You get about $1,000, so not that much. So, because what they're doing is they realise sales are softening in China because there's so many other brands, new stuff coming out. So what they did, they reduced their prices in January this year. Then they did it again. Then they did it again. And so they're just reducing their prices. So they're basically entering new segments, which they couldn't compete with before because they were too expensive. And so with that, all of the Chinese automakers are now releasing cars and then instantly discounting them. BYD just released a new car, the Seagull. It's really small. And they reduced the price 6% within a day. And so this kind of price drop is really putting pressure on everyone. And I think what they're going to come up against is they're going to saturate the market, fine. More people driving EVs is better than ICE cars. But what they're going to do is going to make their products less premium. So Tesla is seen as a premium product, but by reducing the prices, they're going to go into that kind of middle kind of market. And they're not innovating enough. So, the Model 3 is how many years old now?
2018, 2017.
Yeah, so that's old.
Yeah, it is.
And so,
there's a refresh coming.
The refresh is coming, but it's.
Is it enough?
Not really. I don't think so.
I do like it. I think it cleans up some stuff, but it's really just very cosmetic and very minor.
Yeah. And then, the Chinese automakers have, radar, LiDAR, their self-driving tech, I feel is a bit more advanced than Tesla's, and it's available on the roads in China. FSD, you can't get in China. And I don't think you ever will. So there's, Tesla could be facing quite a rocky time over the next few years, unless they develop that cheaper Model 2 that they've been talking about forever, which is meant to be being designed in the Chinese design studio, I think.
Yeah, right.
That's the rumor.
I think they potentially could build it in the Mexican Gigafactory as well. Their latest North American factory will be in Monterrey, Mexico, which is a really cool little tech hub. Kia, Hyundai have factories there. It's just kind of a brain center in Mexico. So I think they're going to be building them there. But I don't think that car comes to the U.S. Well, we can get to that later. But to your point about the premium segment and not Mercedes doesn't make $20,000 cars for a reason. It would hurt the sales of
completely.
If everyone had them, the prestige, the allure would kind of dissipate a little bit.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tesla. I'm quite excited to see how they're going to manage their way through this, especially with US-China relations as well.
So the one I would push back on is Tesla doesn't really refresh their models all that much. Part of the reason is it keeps costs down. The average car company, and in my opinion, car companies don't want to make new cars. They would happily just sell the same car forever. The Toyota 4Runner, for example, the Tacoma, they refresh those very rarely, and they cannot make enough of them. The 4Runner in America, and I had one as a kid, They're unbelievably brilliant cars. And they refresh them every 8 or 9 years, about twice as long as the average car. Tesla's opinion, I think, is the software, we can add new features, we'll add cool stuff, we'll keep you delighted. And the outside of the car kind of remains the same, but you'll still have that sensation of new and premium stuff. And it kind of works. I've had my car for 3 years, and every so often, we talked about this, there's a new feature in Tesla where when the light turns green, you're at a stop, it'll play a little ding. So if you're goofing off on your phone, which every Californian is always doing, instead of having to have the person behind you honking to tell you, your car will tell you. And it's instant, and it's really cool. And suddenly, it just showed up one night. How delightful.
Yeah.
There's a sense of delight when you get stuff like that over the air. So their play has always been on the software side. We'll just build cars that are, very high profit margin. To your point about the price drops, when you're making 22, 24% profit margins, you can lower prices and still be profitable. Whereas the other, like the Fords and GMs, they're on razors and they were barely price competitive. And now you look at something and it's hard to justify the added cost of a ID4 or a Mach-E when the Model Y is just kind of brilliant and cheap. Affordable. Sorry, cheap is not the right word.
Affordable.
Good value.
It feels to me that they're taking a note out of the Apple iPhone and the Samsung book. So Apple's design hasn't really changed that much, but the software, gets better and better. It's basically the same, but it gets better and better. Whereas Samsung is bringing out a new phone every 20 minutes, and it's like, no, that's still not going to sell very well. And they've changed designs hundreds of times. It feels to me a bit like that because we're moving into that kind of digital age. These are seen as more of appliances than cars for a lot of people. Maybe not for me and you, but for a lot of people, it's like, oh, this is a cool gadget. So, I think I actually do agree with you.
That's actually a brilliant analogy, the Samsung Apple. It's frustrating. I'm an Apple user, a diehard Apple fan, always have been. But sometimes I see the new phone and I'm just thinking, what? You changed nothing.
Nothing. Oh, we've got a notch in the top.
It's a brilliant new notch and the camera is 20% better. Give us $1,200, right? But their margins similarly are massive. Samsung, by the way, over years of hard work and dedication, they have a similarly premium segment as well. Their phones are not cheap. They used to be.
No.
They're also 1,000 plus. That's an interesting analogy. I think that's probably pretty fair to say with what Tesla's doing.
And let's quickly talk about the Rivian, because I obviously have never sat in one, I've never driven one. This is really...
It's nice. Look at the little cutouts in the seat.
It's just so well thought through, and it doesn't feel like a big pickup truck. It feels quite compact and cozy in here, and the material quality's great.
It's all soft touch.
Yes.
The wood grain.
The wood. Is that real wood?
Yeah.
Wow.
It kind of has that driftwood kind of look. Yeah, it's premium all around. Everywhere you look and touch.
And the screen is just really crisp and not big and garish. So I often think, in China we're at the cutting edge a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no one else can do, anything better than the Chinese also make. It's a little bit silly of me, but I sit in this and I think, okay, Chinese automakers could learn from American automakers. You guys have been doing it for 100 years. You invented automotive manufacturing with Ford, right? So, do you think this car would do well in a market like China? They love big cars, by the way, in China. So
there's big cars and there's pickup trucks. Would they find that useful?
So the pickup version, no, but there's the
R1S.
The R1S, the Jeep version, that looks really nice.
So as soon as they can make the R1S by the hundreds of thousands, absolutely China would be a great market because it's a massive, gorgeous thing. Inside, would you say this is more premium than Tesla's stuff?
Yes, I say
the
this
Alcantara,
is definitely.
There's it's just a kind of a cut above, I do think, as well.
What this feels like to me is Neo. So Neo, they're kind of going for that luxury premium segment market. Very similar feel to Neo. Like the screen, the Alcantara, the metal, the wood. It does feel like that, and the size as well.
I've always said this is a really important car because Tesla has done well. They've made it, and I think when one company does something that changes the perceived barrier, but it is impossibly difficult to build cars, and Rivian's in the thick of it now. Tesla's kind of gotten past it. Their 3 and Y lines are rocking and rolling, so they're good. But Rivian's in the thick of it now, and I think it's really important that they succeed. Otherwise, we haven't proven that EVs are here. We've proven one company could do it, Tesla, with however they managed to do it. So I think it's important that this also does well.
And what we talk about this, well, I talk about this all the time. I'm talking about legacy brands versus Chinese brands. Do you think there's any brands in the States, in America, that are potentially in trouble with what's coming? Because I mean, I really feel that GM is in trouble because of the whole Bolt move, and they're just a bit slow. Do you think there's anyone who's going to be really threatened by what's coming?
I want to ask you first. So you mentioned GM.
Yeah, so GM definitely. I think Ford will be okay. They've taken a pretty active approach to electrifying all of their range. I think it's a bit of a shame they're getting rid of the smaller cars in Europe, and they're going in with like the bigger cars. But the F-150 Lightning, which is just over there, looks incredible.
It's a good truck.
It's a good truck. You know, it's going to sell very well if they can sort out the dealer network issues. For me, it's GM. 100% GM. They're too big. They're too complacent. They're not connected to the rest of the world. I mean, I don't even know if they understand what's going on in China with their brand.
They've got Buick. They'll be fine.
No. Well, and like Cadillac, we've got the Lyric. That's selling in China right now.
Is it?
Yep.
Is it well received?
Not particularly.
No.
It's not selling very well. It's just they're trying to make it this cool, fun, young brand, but it's just an old man brand, I'm afraid.
I actually think it's easier to make a new brand than to try to change the perceptions that people have. Perceptions in people's minds, almost impossible to change, right?
Yeah.
Like Tesla, for example. You would think American brand would be great. A lot of Americans, like middle America, hate it.
I know.
And they see it as this internet, like this foreign thing. This is as American as it gets. I have a car built in California. If you told me that 10 years ago, I would have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
California is notoriously stupid expensive for everything, labor and all of it. I have a car made in California. Forget just designed, like Apple says, like designed in California, made in China. This is made in America. It's one of the most American cars, and it's still difficult because of the perceptions and things. So, yeah, Cadillac has a tough road. That's a fair point. Ford, though, is brilliant because they electrified the Mustang Mach-E. It's not really a Mustang, and that rubs some people the wrong way, but those people weren't going to buy electric cars anyway. And then the next thing up, F-150, which is the thing that they make.
The best-selling car ever.
Yeah, they sell 500,000 on a down year of F-150s, almost 1 million on a good year, and it's really important that they electrified it. So that kind of shows you where their head is at. But at the same time, they haven't really invested as much in like a platform, and that's how you get profit margins, right? The F-150 is a body-on-frame truck, like every other truck, with batteries stuck in places, and there's not a lot to like grow from that.
No.
It's kind of like the Bolt. The Bolt was a dead end. It was a good car, you sell them, you make them, but beyond that, it doesn't leverage you into other things, right? The Model 3 became the Model Y, 75% blown up. But with Ford, so here's a crazy thing. GM feels foolish and kind of behind, but they do have platforms. They've built like, okay, here's our big truck, which is what the Hummer is based on. They'll make a Suburban on that same platform.
Yeah.
They have the batteries. They've got the battery manufacturing is something that they'll have to prove because the Bolt had too many battery recalls. In my mind, it's hard enough to sell cars, and now you have these recalls and all the fire stuff. It's no good. And it's very hard to overcome some of that stuff. Tesla's never had that. They've always just kind of seemed to know what they're doing in a way that GM hasn't. But let's hope they can turn things around. The big three, now it's Stellantis, Dodge, and them. They're not making Chargers and all the muscle cars, and they're leaning on the electric stuff. A lot of fake sound pumped into the cabin, which you can take it or leave it. The Mach-E does it too. I think they're trying. It'll be a difficult road. If you have a gasoline segment that you'll be cannibalizing, that is a horrible place to be right now. Tesla, BYD. BYD doesn't make gas cars. They have nothing to lose. We mentioned VinFast in Vietnam. Same thing. They're all in. They're full speed ahead. But with Ford and everybody else, every step is, are we ready to lose 600,000 F-150s a year to do this? We can't even make them by the 50,000 a year. The battery issues and limitations.
Yeah, of course.
It's a tough spot to be in, for sure.
But at least they're making steps in the right direction. So, but the other thing we did mention was the issues with the dealer markups. So with Tesla, you just buy it on your phone or on your computer, right? Or you go into a showroom. It's very easy. but with Ford, with a lot of the other companies, can I buy that car at the cost that it says it is? No. So how much is the markup on a F-150, for example?
So I think it's leaned up a little bit. It's not as bad as it was, but in the height of all the nonsense, when used cars were selling for ridiculous amounts of money, when I should have sold my Model 3, when I could have made money on it, they had $30,000 to $40,000 markups. So if it was a...
Hang on, $30,000 to $40,000?
Yeah, and there were people who bought them. There were people who bought them with the markup and they listed them for sale again with a $20,000 markup.
God, that is nuts.
So that would take a $70,000 truck and make it $150,000, $130,000. And there were people who wanted them. If you have money and there's a cool new toy, it's not crazy, especially in low volume. They were not making very many of them. So the markups in the dealer network is a huge, huge problem. GM has already kind of faced it head on. They offered a buyout to Cadillac dealers who said, look, do you want to sell EVs? If you do, you got to invest money, you got to put in chargers, you got to do certain things, training, there's a whole thing. And that's another thing, by the way, convincing like internal combustion mechanics. Now you're going to go be an IT professional, a networking professional, try to troubleshoot an electric car. But so they gave that option, and for companies that said, or the dealers that said, no interest in EVs, they would buy them out and kind of reclaim that franchise as part of their umbrella. It's a massive undertaking and super expensive, as you can imagine. It doesn't scale well. So the dealer network, which was a perceived strength, could very quickly be the greatest weakness, absolutely.
And it seems very strange to me because every car in China you can just buy on your phone. I could probably do it now in front of you in about a minute. It's like, I've bought a new Wuling Mini EV.
So no dealer network.
So there are dealers, but there's no markups. The price is the price, and that's it. Even if it's a super popular model, you just go in the queue and they'll get it out to you in a few months. And that's the biggest thing that's holding the companies in China back, because there's such a demand. So we actually ordered a BYD Dolphin, my wife and I, about a year ago, and we had to wait over 6 months. So we just cancelled the order after 6 months because it still wasn't coming.
Wow.
And they're still selling like 100,000 of them a month. So their backlog is, 500,000 cars.
Jesus.
It's just on another level. So yeah, luckily we don't have the dealer markups, but I have seen a lot of US vehicles now coming to China. All ICE vehicles, but we get Ford F-150 pickup trucks. We get the Rams. These are all ICE. Lots of Lincolns. Like really big cars. I'm really worried we're starting to go down that route of more SUVs and less small cars. It just seems like it's the natural thing to do, and it's a bit of a shame.
I think that is an inevitability, and we're not coming back.
You think so?
Sadly, no. I'm on a panel later talking about like why do we love SUVs? I think it's hard to go back. Once you have a bigger car, it's hard to go back. It's a tough road to walk back. Just sad. But if they're electric, at least that's a step in the right direction. And there are ways to make SUVs and things more efficient. This is not it. This is about 2 miles per kilowatt hour. If you're driving nicely, it could be much lower pretty easily. The F-150 is similar. But like my Model Y, which has a third row, not a big third row, but like children can fit in it, does almost 4. There's not a big penalty. So we don't have to hate on them entirely, but it does require some aerodynamic modeling and sculpting to get. Because what you don't want is a bunch of EVs that are terribly inefficient, that require way more charging. Because if you need twice as much charge, that's twice as much demand on the grid when all these cars are DC fast charging. All this stuff matters, and I think, yes, we need, the trucks and stuff are good, it's okay, but we need to have some sort of efficient thing. That, I'd imagine, is incredibly efficient. Just look at the design of it.
Yeah, that's
and it's
so
massive.
sleek. Yeah,
it's a big thing.
It's huge.
We're talking about the Italian startup here.
Yeah,
such a pretty thing.
It's a beautiful car.
Yeah,
I think maybe just one more kind of area I want to talk about is there's obviously a lot of electric motorbikes here. The electric bikes. I wonder is that something that's going to explode? Not literally. Is that something? Is that something that's going to become more popular in the States? So I'll give you China as an example. There are no petrol bikes as in mopeds on the roads in Shanghai, in Shenzhen.
I've heard that.
Everyone rides electric bikes. So we've jumped a step, which is great because they're quiet, they're efficient, easily charged, and they're just so much better. And then there's a lot of people who still ride pedal bikes. Whereas I see a lot of videos on YouTube about the US and things, stroads and how they're so unfriendly to pedestrians. Is that something, do you think, which will ever change? Or is there a movement that's beginning to make that change in the US? Or do you think it's inevitable, everyone's just going to end up driving SUVs forever and Cybertrucks?
So I was in India recently, where I'm from, and there's a change happening there too. So India and China, just the pollution issues, there's such
horrific,
huge amounts of people. It all just matters so much. And there's a move to electric. A lot of the new scooters and stuff are electric. And all you need is like an 8 kilowatt-hour battery pack to completely take care of your entire day of riding around, which is great. Europe as well. A comment we often get from European viewers, Asian viewers is, ditch the car, ride a bike. It's like, I don't think that's going to happen in the US. First of all, our roads are not pedestrian friendly in the way the European cities are. There are places in Europe where it's bad to be in the car, which is crazy, which is the opposite of the US. So the safety of it, I've had friends who've, somebody opens a door, comes out of a left turn, and you're picking pebbles out of your skin. It's not
not nice.
It's not nice. And so that might be a tougher sell. I think the efficient electric cars are going to be as green as Americans are going to get, honestly. I don't think it'll be easy to convince. I mean, there are some people who ride bikes. It's not like there's none, but just it's not in a meaningful quantity to really push the needle.
No, I think for you guys, for me, it feels like it'll be in the bigger cities, like maybe Portland, maybe New York.
Some of the more hip
Austin.
And trendy.
Yeah. And I think it might, be more popular there rather than anywhere else. So what's been your best experience of the show so far this weekend?
Just the people, the energy have been amazing. But for me, really, it was pretty eye-opening to see how many models of EVs there are in Europe that we just don't have in the US, especially the Chinese ones. Like, to your point, I got a chance to sit in the Dolphin, the space, the premium materials, the quality of it all. It's fantastic. So come out and test drive something. You can see some of the amazing new things that are coming out. And now we have cars being unveiled at Fully Charged Live. How cool is that?
I think for me, again, it's the people, like you said, the energy. Everyone's so enthusiastic, and they are, like you, seeing a BYD for the first time. Yeah. I'm excited because I'm in a Rivian for the first time. I'll be about to be in a Ford F-150 in a minute. So, yeah, I think come down. The next show is in Harrogate in just a few weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you for speaking today, Ricky.
Absolute pleasure.
And we're going to go off and enjoy the rest of the show. Have a little walk around.
Yes.
Maybe explore the F-150 a bit more. You show me around that car.
Yes. Let's go drive it. We'll do some off-roading.
Oh, I think we can actually. Let's do that.
Yeah, got some muddy.
Yeah, there are lots of muddy fields. Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank
Cheers.
you. Cheers.